The Big Eight Conference was a National Collegiate Athletic Association-affiliated Division I college athletic association that sponsored football. It was formed in January 1907 as the Missouri Valley Intercollegiate Athletic Association by its charter member schools: the University of Kansas, University of Missouri, University of Nebraska, and Washington University in St. Louis. Additionally, the University of Iowa was an original member of the MVIA while maintaining joint membership in the Western Conference. The conference was dissolved in 1996. Its membership at its dissolution consisted of the University of Nebraska, Iowa State University, the University of Colorado at Boulder, the University of Kansas, Kansas State University, the University of Missouri, the University of Oklahoma, and Oklahoma State University. The Big Eight kept its headquarters in Kansas City, Missouri. In February 1995, the Big Eight and the Southwest Conference announced that the two leagues had reached an agreement to form a new conference. The 8 members of the Big Eight joined with SWC schools Texas, Texas A&M, Baylor, and Texas Tech to form the Big 12 Conference the following year. A vote was conducted on whether to keep the new conference's headquarters in Kansas City, and by a vote of 7-5 the conference members voted to move to the Dallas, Texas suburb of Irving. The 2 Oklahoma schools, all 4 Texas schools, and Colorado voted for the move, while both Kansas schools, Nebraska, Missouri, and Iowa State voted for Kansas City. History. Formation. The conference was founded as the Missouri Valley Intercollegiate Athletic Association at a meeting on January 12, 1907, by 5 charter members: the University of Kansas, the University of Missouri, the University of Nebraska, Washington University in St. Louis, the University of Iowa, who was also a member of the Western Conference, was also a joint member of the conference. Iowa only participated in football and outdoor men's track and field. Early membership changes. In 1908, Drake University and Iowa Agricultural College joined the MVIA, increasing the conference's membership to 7. Iowa, who was a joint member, departed in 1911 to only compete in the Western Conference, but Kansas State University joined the conference in 1913. Nebraska left in 1918 to play as an independent for 2 seasons before returning in 1920. In 1919, the University of Oklahoma and St. Louis University applied for membership, but were disapproved due to deficient management of their athletic programs. The conference then added Grinnell College in 1919, with the University of Oklahoma applying again and being approved in 1920. Oklahoma A&M University joined in 1925, bringing conference membership to 10, an all-time high. Conference split. At a meeting in Lincoln, Nebraska on May 19, 1928, the conference split up. 6 of the 7 state schools formed a conference that was initially known as the Big Six Conference. Just before the start of fall practice, the 6 schools announced they would retain the MVIA name for formal purposes. However, fans and media continued to call it the Big Six. The 3 private schools, Drake, Grinnell, and Washington University, joined with Oklahoma A&M, becoming known as the Missouri Valley Conference. The similarity of the 2 conferences' official names, as well as the competing claims of the 2 conferences, led to considerable debate over which conference was the original and which was the spin-off, though the MVIA went on to become the more prestigious of the 2. For the remainder of the Big Eight's run, both conferences claimed 1907 as the founding date, as well as the same history through 1927. To this day, it has never been definitively established which conference was the original. Conference membership grew with the addition of the University of Colorado on December 1, 1947, from the Mountain States Conference. Later that month, Reeves E. Peters was hired as Commissioner of Officials and Assistant Secretary and set up the first conference offices in Kansas City, Missouri. With the addition of Colorado, the conference's unofficial name became the Big Seven Conference. Coincidentally, the former unofficial name of the MSC. The final membership change happened 10 years later, when Oklahoma A&M joined the conference on June 1, 1957, and the conference became known as the Big Eight. The same year, Peters' title was changed to Executive Secretary of the Conference. He retired in June 1963 and was replaced by Wayne Duke, whose title was later changed to Commissioner. In 1964, the conference legally assumed the name Big Eight Conference. In 1968, the conference began a long association with the Orange Bowl, sending its champion annually to play in the prestigious bowl game in Miami, Florida. Formation of the Big 12 Conference in the early 1990s. Most of the colleges in Division 1A were members of the College Football Association. This included members of the Big Eight and Southwest conferences. Following a Supreme Court decision in 1984, the primary function of the CFA was to negotiate television broadcast rights for its member conferences and independent colleges. In February 1994, the Southeastern Conference announced that they, like the Big Ten, Pac-10, and Notre Dame before them, would be leaving the CFA and negotiate independently for a television deal that covered sex schools only. This led the Dallas Morning News to proclaim that the College Football Association as a television entity is dead. More significantly, this change in television contracts ultimately would lead to significant realignment of college conferences, with the biggest change being the dissolution of the Big Eight and the Southwest conferences and the formation of the Big 12. After the SEC's abandonment of the CFA, the Southwest Conference and the Big Eight Conference saw potential financial benefits from an alliance to negotiate television deals, and quickly began negotiations to that end with ABC and ESPN. Though there were complications over the next several weeks, on February 25, 1994, it was announced that a new conference would be formed from the members of the Big Eight and 4 of the Texas member colleges of the Southwest Conference. Though the name would not be made official for several months, newspaper accounts immediately dubbed the new entity the Big 12. Charter members of the Big 12 included the members of the Big 8 plus Baylor, Texas, Texas A&M, and Texas Tech. Dissolution. Following the formation of the Big 12 Conference in 1994, the Big 8 continued operations till August 30, 1996, when the conference was formally dissolved and its members officially began competition in the Big 12 Conference. Although the Big 12 was essentially the Big 8 plus the 4 Texas schools, the Big 12 regards itself as a separate conference and does not claim the Big 8's history as its own. Members. Final members, previous members, membership timeline, full members, other conference, subsequent conference affiliations, commissioners. Reeves Peters as Executive Secretary. Wayne Duke, Chuck Ninas, Carl C. James. Conference champions. Men's basketball. Following the MVIA at Big 8 regular season conference champions from 1908 to 1996. Football shared championships are shown in italics. Asterisk. Kansas would have won the 1960 title. but after found to be using an ineligible player, they were forced to forfeit the victories over Missouri and Colorado, which meant that Missouri was awarded the 1960 Big 8 title. Oklahoma would have won the 1972 title, but after found to be using an ineligible player, they were forced to forfeit the victories over Missouri, Kansas, and Oklahoma State, which meant that Nebraska was awarded the 1972 Big 8 title. National championships won by MVIA at Big 8 members. The following is a complete list of the 100 IAW, NCAA and college football championships won by teams that were representing the Big 8 conference in NCAA or IAW recognized sports at the time of the championship. National team titles by institution. The national championships listed below are for the final 8 members of the conference as of July 2014. Football, helms, and equestrian titles are included in the total, but excluded from the column listing NCAA and IAW titles. Racial integration. The history of the Big 8 Conference straddles the era of racial segregation in the United States, particularly as it relates to African Americans. Before the formation of the conference, 3 African American brothers at the University of Kansas are the first known to have participated in organized sports for a league school. Sherman Haney played baseball for KU beginning in 1888, followed by Grant Haney and then Ed Haney, the last of whom also played football at KU in 1893. At the same time, the University of Nebraska football team had on its roster George Flippin, the son of a slave, beginning in 1891. Nebraska's football team featured 3 more African American players over the next 12 years. Notable among these new players was Clinton Ross, who in 1911 apparently became the first African American to participate in sport in the MVIA. Following the league's formation in 1907, race relations in the United States, however, deteriorated in the early 20th century, and African American athletes disappeared almost entirely from the conference in the 4 decades after Ross's final season at NU in 1913. The lone exception during the following decades was Iowa State. In 1923, Jack Trice became the first African American athlete at Iowa State, and the only one in the conference. Tragically, Trice died 2 days after playing his second football game with Iowa State, due to injuries suffered during the game. Jack Trice Stadium at Iowa State is now named in his honor. Trice was followed at Iowa State by Holloway Smith, who played football for ISU in 1926 and 1927. After Smith, the league's teams were all white for more than 2 decades. Modern era. The modern era of full integration of league sports began at Kansas State, with Harold Robinson. In 1949, Harold Robinson played football for Kansas State with an athletic scholarship. In doing so, Robinson broke the modern color barrier in conference athletics, and also became the first ever African-American athlete on scholarship in the conference. Harold Robinson later received a letter of congratulations from Jackie Robinson, who had reintegrated Major League Baseball in 1947 while playing with the Brooklyn Dodgers. In the spring of 1951, the conference's baseball color barrier was broken by Kansas State's Earl Woods, and in the winter of 1951-1952, Kansas State's Gene Wilson and Kansas's Levancey Squires jointly broke the conference color barrier in basketball. Nebraska was the 3rd league school to integrate its athletic teams, with Charles Bryant joining the football team in 1952. Iowa State would be next, with Harold Potts and Henry Philman reintegrating the Cyclone football team in 1953. The following season, Franklin Clark became the first varsity African-American football player at the University of Colorado. In 1955, Homer Floyd became the first African-American to play football for the Cougar Jayhawks since Ed Haney in 1893. Sports teams at the remaining three conference schools were subsequently all integrated by the end of the 1950s. Conference facilities